Welcome. I'm Kevin Bolmer. This is Journeys with the No Schedule Man. This episode is presented by Mulligan Realty Group, Provincial Glass and Mirror, and myrealsuccess.ca. This is episode number 113 of Journeys with the No Schedule Man. And today we're going to introduce you to Steve Bottrill. This is a story that you're especially going to be interested in if you've ever doubted yourself, or if you feel like anyone has ever doubted you or tried to script your life for you. And maybe you've done this to yourself, where there have been maybe limitations imposed upon your psyche, your thinking, your spirit, your emotions. But deep down at your core, you really have a feeling and you know what you're capable of, and you're not going to be held down. Certainly, we've been going through a time where there have been multiple challenges, not of our choosing, thrown at us from all directions as we are recording this conversation at the time of the COVID pandemic. Who knows what might be reality at the time that you find this conversation. But if you've ever doubted yourself and you want to believe again, listen to this conversation with Steve. I'm going to give you just a quick context, a little bit about him before we bring him on so that we can hit the ground running, and you'll know just a little bit about what makes Steve so remarkable. So imagine yourself in your early 20s. In Steve's case, he was 22 years old. His whole life ahead of him, already had things pretty much figured out, was going to a place called Carleton University, and was driving back home to a place called Chatham, Ontario, which is in southwestern Ontario-ish, moving toward the Ontario-Michigan border. You keep going down the highway and you get to Detroit. Anyway, he's headed home. He's going to get married soon. Everything's good. You got your whole life ahead of you at 22 years old. Car accident, which we may describe in more detail a little bit later, leaves Steve in a really bad way. And specifically, he's in a coma for 10 days. However, Steve now says that while he was in the coma, he could actually hear conversations that the doctors were having with his parents. And he heard them say that he, Steve, would never walk again, never talk again. He heard them say that he would be connected to machines his entire life. He heard the doctors tell his parents that he, Steve, would never be 100% again, that he would never go back to school or play sports. As again, Steve says that he could hear all those conversations around him while he was in a coma. For some reason, he was determined to prove them wrong. And the fact that he's even here to have this conversation with me kind of gives you a little bit of a hint into what happened. I want to introduce Steve to you right now. First of all, Steve, welcome and thank you for joining us on Journeys with the No Schedule Man. I want to jump right into the conversation by asking you how to describe what's it like being in a coma, but actually aware enough to hear, to recognize conversations about you. How would you help me and those who are listening and watching understand what that's like?
Okay. The best way I can describe it is to be, at night you'll have a nightmare, and it just feels realistic. It feels so realistic in that you're scared so much that you wake up and then you realize, oh, wow, it's just a nightmare. But in my situation, I was stuck in that nightmare. I couldn't wake up. So that nightmare became my reality. And I woke up with a strange looking face and couldn't walk and talk. And so that was, that's a simple way to describe it. It's just being stuck in a nightmare, not being able to wake up from that nightmare.
I've got a bunch of questions that I could ask from that. It sounds awful. When you came out of the coma, how aware were you of what the situation was? Like to ask that another step further, were you able to piece together that what you were hearing from that nightmare to know where you were?
No, I wasn't, because I can remember waking up, opening my eyes. First of all, it's my eyes all funny. I was seeing two of everything, even though there's only one person there talking to me. I would see two of them. So that was strange, getting used to seeing two of everything. And then I can remember the nurse, the male nurse saying, "Do you know what happened to you?" And I said, I thought I said, well, you can still see the hole in my neck from the trach. They didn't bother sewing it up because they thought I was going to die anyway. So why bother sewing it up? I mean, nobody still has the hole. Who's alive anyway? So, he said, "Do you know what happened to you?" And, I thought I said, "Yeah, I fell asleep," because I was asleep in the car when we were hit by the other car. And I was a passenger in that car. I wasn't driving. And, I said, I fell asleep, but I couldn't talk because I had a trach in my throat. And he said, "You can't talk because you have a trach in your throat." And, and then, he said, "You've been in a coma for 10 days. You're in London, Ontario. It's, we have you strapped to the bed." And I said, "You have the wrong person. I can get up and walk out of here right now." But, maybe my mouth was moving, but there's no sounds coming out. And he said, "You can't talk. You can't move. You have no muscle. You can't walk. You can't do anything." And it was like, I was just so confused. I couldn't figure it out. And sure enough, after a while, after like weeks and weeks, I was going down to rehab, and sure enough, I couldn't, the senses were not coming back to me, and I couldn't stand, I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, nothing was making sense. But, those voices that I had heard were kind of, I'm like, maybe it's all making sense. It wasn't a nightmare after all. So that became my reality, and I finally put it together and accepted everything.
At what point do you think it was that you were starting to piece that together like you just described? Like, in other words, how long would you say that it took for
I
some of
would
those
say,
pieces to start to fit in your mind?
yeah, I think once my brain started to heal, it started to put it all together, which was probably a good month and a half.
Wow.
Yeah,
So you were in a coma for 10 days. Is that
10
correct?
days. Yeah,
And then another month and a half before it even starts
yeah,
stitching itself to where it makes
yeah,
some semblance
yeah,
of sense. So you're
yeah.
living, just to try to help people who are watching and listening, and myself, quite frankly, Steve, to try to empathize and really understand what this might have been like. You're like that, the Steve that the life that you had just kind of gets switched off.
Yeah.
It's in the dark. You're trapped in this nightmare for a while. And then when you do wake up, you can't do anything that you're used to knowing how to do.
No.
And you don't know where you are, and you don't know how you got there. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you keep from going into a full on panic attack and in those moments? I mean, maybe they have you heavily medicated, but how do you even function with that amount of uncertainty?
I don't know what it was that came over me, but because I could always remember them saying, your son will never be 100% again. He'll never be the same. And then I had my fiance at the time, who was really religious, and she kind of helped me through a lot of this, coming and visit me every day from Chatham, just amazing person. And she would come visit me every day and pray all the time, and told me, you should pray. You just start praying. And I said, well, I know how to pray. I had no idea about religion whatsoever. She said, you should start praying. And I said, okay, well, how do I do that? She said, well, you just talk to God, just like you're talking. And like, it just, and then, it started to really come together. But, I prayed for strength, and I never blamed God. It was really strange to me at the time, because on one side I got people telling me you'll never be the same, you'll never be 100% again, you'll never walk again, you'll never talk again, and then and then you know they're starting to piece. I'm starting to piece together. I was hit by a car and I can't move properly. I can't see, which was strange. Being blind is not. It's the worst sense to lose is your eyesight. You know, so I was blind for a while, and that and once I started to pray, I prayed for strength rather than anything. I didn't pray to blame what, like, I didn't wasn't the type of person that said, why did this happen to me? You wrecked everything, and hey, it happens. Stuff happens. Um, Snowplows were on strike. There's a big snowstorm that we weren't aware of, and these things happen. Our car was T-boned directly where I was sitting. I took the entire blunt force of the car. Then, piecing it all together again. I didn't blame God. I just prayed for strength to get through it. Let me get through this. Let me be stronger and better than 100%. And so that was my whole goal, was to get better than 100%, to be better than I was, to prove them wrong. I was all about proving them wrong. I was going to do it and show them that I was going to be better than what they said. And I just wanted the strength to do that. And, it just, I never went into depression. A lot of people go into depression, but I was the type of person, well, this happened, I'm starting to come to terms with it all. And, what am I going to do about it now? Where am I going to find the strength? You got to really look within yourself to find that strength. And however you find that strength, some do it by praying to God. And it worked for me. And I was the type of person that always wanted to prove them wrong. That was another thing, another factor. And so that is something that really helped me, is that that was it.
Why do you think you were so defiant and
To prove
not
wrong.
willing, like
Yeah.
not willing to accept the diagnoses, the limitations?
Because I wasn't, I don't know where I got the strength. I don't know where I was supposed to be in a coma, and I wasn't supposed to hear any of this. But for some reason, I heard it. Why was I so defiant? I think I was defiant as a kid growing up. I was the type of person to be better than to be, you know, better than what anybody thought. And, everything in my life had always been competition, sports, be better. And I think that the way I grew up really helped make me into the person I am today. And that really helped shape me to be that type of person that never gives up, no matter how tough the obstacles. If you believe in yourself, you can achieve anything. It doesn't matter if they think you're dead, and you can prove them wrong. If you believe in yourself, you can accomplish anything. You can become whatever you want. It's all right here.
Let's see if you can help me break it down a little bit
Yeah.
in terms of getting from there to here.
Yeah.
What's your recollection of one of the first things or two that you felt like, okay, we're going to reach for this, as opposed to coming all the way back of thinking, okay, they say
Yeah.
that I'm never going to be 100%. I'm never going to be able to play sports. I'm always going to be hooked
Yeah.
up to machines.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back from all of that, but bringing it back down to something simpler.
Sure.
You can't
Yep.
talk, you can't see,
Right.
you got a hole in your throat. What's your
Right.
recollection of the first thing or two that you thought, all right, you know what? I'm going to do this, and then once I
Right.
do this, then maybe we'll look at
Yeah.
something
You know
else.
what? I didn't think about the big picture. I didn't, like, every day. I kind of had it in the back of my mind that I was going to be better than 100%. But every day there's a new challenge, a new obstacle. No matter what they placed in front of me, I was going to succeed. Um, okay, I'm gonna give you one that, you know, in occupational therapy, they 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 would have you do different skills that you know you do in everyday life. Like, how would you pick up a pencil and write? You would do it like that. So I figured that out. That's no problem. How would you, you know, use utensils to eat? Because I had trouble doing that as well. You know, you figure it out and you eat it, right? Because I was hooked up to feeding tube, so I had to learn all that. But so every day I figured that out. Another one that I was stuck on that was really hard for me was turning it, putting a key in the lock and turning it open. How do you do that? So, you know, I this was the most confusing thing to me. So I had the key, and then like, well, how do you do this? You know, and I couldn't figure out how to do it, and I was so confused. So, you know, every time if there was an obstacle in front of me, like for instance the key challenge, I would go back to my room, like when it was time to go back to my room,
Mm-hmm.
and work so that I could figure out how to do it. So, you know, it only took me a short while. Like forever, I couldn't figure out how to turn a key. How do you turn a key? So then, you know, practice, you know, and I had people in my room all the time, you know, family visitors or whoever. It says, help me figure out how to turn a key. So, you know, then, you know, eventually we figure out how to turn my wrist to make it turn a key. So that was one there. Another one was like just writing. Like how do you know, using a pencil to write, you know, like printing and just simple things that you would think are super simple. Tying my shoelace. I can remember this one because this was one of the first times that my fiance at the time said she said she wasn't gonna do it for me because she would help me do everything, you know, like help me put my clothes on and help me do this. But the one thing she didn't do, she's like my shoes. She helped put my shoes on, but then I said, "Okay, tie it." And I give her my shoe, like I put my foot for it. I said, "Tie it." She said, "No." I said, "What?" She said, "No, you do it." So I had to figure out how to tie up a shoelace. And that was hard too, but I'm so glad she did that because it made me become more independent. And then another one, I mean, it was getting my own pair of shoes. Like, because they didn't allow me to have running shoes for the longest time because I didn't know how to walk. So at first they wanted to learn how to walk without shoes. So then, you know, when it was finally time for me to get my own shoes, I was just so happy, you know, that I had my own shoes because each day it's a little step forward to to getting back to 100%. So every day there's a new challenge set in front of you, uh, and for everybody it would have been super easy, you know, like brushing your hair or washing your face, brushing your teeth, you know, uh, going to the bathroom. Going to the bathroom by myself was amazing. Like that I couldn't do that forever. Like I always have to have somebody take me to the bathroom, you know, uh, and and to eat by myself because I had a feeding tube, and to learn how to eat by myself, you know, use utensils and eat, or to, you know, just to see, you know, figure out how to see again, or you know, it was just every day was a little. There's a little obstacle in front of me that I needed to conquer, and you know, if I didn't, I'd go back to my room. I'd work on it until I did. Learning to walk again, how to run again. But did you know that I learned to run before I learned to walk? Because I found that running was easier on my balance than walking. Don't know why, but I always figured running was so much easier for me. You
What
know?
you I, I'm interested in what you recall about the timeline of some of this stuff to help again with some context
Yeah,
for the rest of us. You were
yeah,
22 years old at the time of the accident, correct?
yeah, yeah.
It sounds to me, Steve, like what you're describing is that you basically had to learn how to do everything again from
Everything,
scratch. You couldn't
everything.
see, you couldn't talk, you
No,
couldn't chew, you couldn't
no,
go to the washroom, walk,
yep,
any of that.
nothing.
Help me understand, if you could, what amount of time are we talking about of some of this functionality and independence returning to you, and different things? I mean, were they some of them months, some of them years, some of them you're still working on? What do you think?
Yeah, like turning the key, like for instance, turning the key. That took me about 3 days to figure out how to turn a key, right? People do that in their sleep. You know, uh, Learning to walk again. That took a good at least 2 months just to learn
Hmm.
how to keep my balance and walk. You know, and if the floor was crooked, then I'd lose my balance.
You wouldn't have
So
been a good sailor, huh?
no, and here's another one. Here's another one. Okay, now my eyes are messed up. I can't move my eyeballs downward. So I had to learn how to look down without moving my eyeballs down. So I had to learn to move my whole head. So that took forever. That took forever to figure out how to just not automatically move my eyeballs. You know, I had to, if I want to look down, I got to consciously move my head. So whereas everybody else just nice and easy moves their eyeballs, so but that took forever to figure something as simple as that out. That probably took me a good week, but I had to be warned that if I was walking, I had to be warned that there's a step in the way, or there's the ground is changing, and then depth perception. Again, my depth perception was way off. Like I had no depth perception. Everything looked two-dimensional to me. So, you throw me a ball, I'm just lost. I couldn't figure out how to catch the ball. Nothing. Um, so that I'm, still to this day, you know, I still have to look around to figure out if something is back further or closer to in relationship to something else. So I can't, if something's in the air, I couldn't tell you if it's on the same plane as something behind it, because they kind of look on top of each other to me. You know, it's so weird. And so, but I tell you one thing that helped with my drawing skills, because now to draw, on a page, everything's two-dimensional on a page, and you have to make it look 3D. What? Now I understand how lines work, right? How depth of lines go and how crooked things have to look so that it looks back in space. So my drawing has drastically improved, but everything, so that's one thing that, I guess has, has, uh, has worked better for me.
What were the specific injuries, Steve?
Okay. Uh, well, obviously you see my eyes, my my hips were busted. My internal organs were mashed together like spleen. My spleen was messed up. My kidneys were in there. Um, I couldn't even tell you everything. And then, you know, as for my brain, my frontal lobes were damaged. The, the hippocampus, my brain stem was bruised. It wasn't broken, because it's broken, you're dead. Well, mine was really bruised. So my eyeballs were like super huge, I guess. The pupils, because the way that you could tell if somebody has a brain injury, their pupils are huge. And then as the pupils shrink, their brain's coming back to the size it's supposed to be. But you know, my shoulder blades, my collarbone, I'm sorry, was busted. So I only had to use one arm. So when it's in the wheelchair, I couldn't use one arm. So I'm trying to go with one wheel. So I'm banging in the walls all the time, you know. So that had to heal, and um, I wore an eye patch for a while to try and make this eye back to fix, but then I was banging this stuff and I'd feel sick. So I said, forget it. We're not doing that. Um, and just, I can't think about the other injuries, but I'm sure there was. Um, but so it was a long road to recovery.
How long were you in the hospital for
Uh,
after the
my
accident?
my wife says 6 months, and
Wow.
I say about 4 or 5. I know, so you know, I always say just agree with your wife because
Are you
she's always right.
I'm not touching
Yeah,
that. What age are you now, Steve?
46.
Yeah, okay.
So
So we're the same age.
yeah,
Are there still things that you're rehabbing in a certain way of speaking or working on or hoping that you
yeah,
can improve?
yeah. Oh, definitely. Like as you can, my voice is slightly different. I think it's gravelly now. It's not as crisp as it used to be, like your voice. Uh, Obviously, my vision's just shot. Um, uh, Obviously, I can't run as fast as I once could. Um, my balance, I'm not always secure with my balance, so sometimes I'll have to catch myself. Um, What else? Uh, my wife says my memory tends to go, but you know, I don't know if that's true or if and I just say she'll say, I think your hearing's going too because you don't listen to what I say, but you know that could be just tuning her out, but um, just obviously my finding the proper words. I don't always have the proper vocabulary. Um, and I'm not as quick witted as I once was. You know, my brain, the way that it works, what I've found out, like I have major brain damage in certain parts of my brain, but instead of my brain going from one part to the other in a straight line when I want a word to come out or I want to, say something or recognize something or make a decision. Instead of going straight to here, look, because there's a bruised area wherever it is, it'll like take a certain different path to get to the final answer. So sometimes it might just take me a fraction longer than it would if I didn't have a massive brain damage.
Back into the time where you were closer to the accident and doing a lot
Yeah.
of the initial rehab,
Yeah.
at what point do you remember, if you ever even did, a time where you were kind of like, yeah, see, they didn't think I could do that. And now I'm doing it. And you felt a little sense of momentum to help fuel you forward.
Every day, every day, every
Really?
day. Yeah. Because every day was a new accomplishment for me. Uh, at first, they thought, he'll never walk again. It did took me a long time to figure out how to do that, but I did it. Proved them wrong. The, the, he'll never go back to school. I went back to university. I finished up. But let me tell you something. I had 2 credits to go. Okay, before I was done, they gave Carleton University were great because they gave me all my credits except for 2. so, so I still had 2 credits to go, and I thought, well, as soon as I get out of this hospital, and I can, I'm going to sign up for university courses right away. So, at the time, they were offering University of Windsor courses in Chatham. And I said, you know what? I don't care what courses they are. I'm taking them. Right. So that would be 4 courses, right? To make 2 credits. I'm like, okay. And they said, but you don't need, you need, if I went to college university, I could pass with a C minus. Yeah. There's a C minus or whatever it was. It was, a D. A D would pass you, right? But if I transferred to University of Windsor, I would need a C minus. I'm like, well, make it a little bit harder on me, why don't you? So I'm up for the challenge. So I went back to University of Windsor courses, and I said, whatever courses there are, but they have to be communication studies and psychology courses. I said, okay, I'll take those. And well, soon enough, I figured out that, well, I can't remember this stuff. I can't figure this out. So I would go to the course, right, and I'd write down as much as I could, and I just, but what I did was I took a tape recorder. This is back in the day. I took those little mini tape recorders. I placed it at the front of the class. I recorded her, like the professors, because I knew I would forget it. So I put it there. I recorded it, right? And I made as many notes as I could. I went back home, and then for the next week, I would just listen over and over and over and over and drill it in my head, take more and more notes, and go over and over and over those notes so that I could remember this stuff. But what should have taken me, let's say, so those 4 courses would take you maybe, 1 semester, which maybe like 4 months, 5 months, right? It took me 2 years, but you know what? It doesn't matter. I did it, and I proved them wrong again by how I did it. And it's all by me figuring out again how to do it. I have to go about learning differently, but you know what? I did it. I placed that tape recorder. I listened it over and over and over, drilled it in my head for months and months, right? And I dropped courses because I knew I couldn't take 4 courses at the same time, or even 2. So I took 1 course, and I took 1 course at a time. And over the week, I would like learn a lesson of one night, learn it, just go over and over and over it, so I could pick it up in my minimalized brain. But you know what? I did it. I ended up passing those courses with I think one of them I actually got a B plus. I think I might have got the highest mark in the class in my communication studies class, and then the rest of them, I think I end up with a C. But so I did it. I passed the course. I got my university degree. Proved them wrong again. I was able to do it, and then they said you'll never play sports again. Sure enough, you're right. I took 10 years off from playing sports. Okay, but you know what happened? I would go watch my old team play, right? The Chatham team. And I would just sit up in the bleachers. I'd go home and I would just cry. I would cry when I got home because that's supposed to be me out there. That's supposed to be me scoring goals and to getting into tackles and hurting, all that. So, that was just another driving force for me, was to get back to playing soccer. It's something I love doing. So, I took the 10 years off. And again, I practiced on my own. I went back to playing house league men's rec soccer, but I went back to playing soccer, which was amazing. So my first year, I'd get about 5 minutes a game because I wasn't that good. But who can blame me? I couldn't see properly. I couldn't run properly. Didn't know how to kick a soccer ball. I had to learn it all again. But but they give me 5 minutes or 10 minutes a game, So then I'm like, okay, well, this is no good. But then I played again the next year, and then I got more of a game. And the next year, played again. And then by about the 3rd year, I'm playing the whole game. It's like, well, this is great. And then I'm like, I gotta score a goal. I gotta get back. So then I scored a goal. And then I keep scoring. So then I kept scoring. And I started to figure out how to play again with my crazy eyes and kicking different, not being, because, try playing soccer without moving your eyeballs down. It's pretty hard. You got to do this the whole game. It's like hard, but I had to learn it all again, how to kick the soccer ball without looking at it, and to be aware of everybody with only seeing half the field. you know, but I did it. And then one game, I said, I got to score that hat trick because this is the ultimate scoring a hat trick. So I did in one of the games, I scored 3 goals in the game. I thought, whoa, I did it. I finally scored a hat trick, and that was it. That was my huge accomplishment. And, I proved them all wrong again that I could do it. The proof is that whatever you set your mind to, you can accomplish. You may have to do it differently, but you can do it. So that's my big
You,
talk right there.
you touched on something that I was going to ask you, which is when you had some low human moments, because we all have
Yeah,
those,
sure.
especially, well, we all have them,
Yeah,
regardless of the extra kinds of challenges that you have had to
yeah,
overcome. And just thinking about being in the stands and observing and
yeah,
being held to the sidelines of something that you
yeah,
love to do.
yeah,
But what were some other times where, because all of this you're recounting with the benefit of hindsight, it's a
yeah,
long journey and there must have been a lot of
yeah,
pain, a lot of
yeah,
confusion.
yeah, yeah.
Um, it,
There was.
what do you
Yeah,
recall about some times when you're just, I wish my eye wasn't this way. I wish I didn't hurt. I wish I could just, it doesn't sound like you're much for poor me, but there must have been some moments where you needed a bit of a boost.
yeah. Well, my fiance stayed with me the whole time, and she was awesome. She kept me pumped up. She kept me going. If it wasn't for her, I'd be I'd be a drunk, and I'd be on the side of the road, and I'd be dead. You know, but you know, she kept encouraging me, and you know, I tried never to let the negative into my mind, because
Mhm.
once I would, if I ever let the negative in, then it really hinder my own belief, my own drive. Uh, so sure there was moments, but they were short lived, because I had something to drive for. I had something pushing me forward and getting me going. You know, and I'd like to probably credit a lot to my now my wife. She stayed with me the whole time. Incredible. She saw me through the worst of times, and she's still with me today. We have 4 great kids. Um, you know, uh, there was always something. There's always something to strive for. Uh, sure, I, you know, um, maybe I had it, a little bit more to drink than I usually would. You know, got into drinking a little bit, but then, I started to gain weight and not look healthy. I didn't like the way I looked, the way I felt. So I thought, well, and how's this going to help me? How's this going to help me get to where I want to be?
Mm.
Because, you know, so I tried to keep a positive mindset, and um, being down didn't help me. I could remember my roommate in the hospital. He had a whole entire cave fall on him. He was a miner, and he had a mine collapse on him. But he kept saying, shit happens. You can't do anything about it. I can't do anything about this. This happened. What am I going to do to fix it? And that's it. What are you going to do to fix it?
What's driving you forward now, Steve? Like, what are you striving for now? What excites you?
Was This excites me. This excites me. What excites me is inspiring other people to reach for their goals. To I want to inspire like a million or more people to be the best they can be. Um, and that's what I'm striving for. Um, and to everybody I come across, I want to make them a better person. And that makes me feel good. Um, I guess by what I work now for the VON and work for myself doing exercise therapy for seniors and people with disabilities. So that's what really gets me going, is when I see them improve with their quality of life, and they come back to me and say, well, because of you, Steve, we didn't give up. And that's what's driving me. It's when people say that to me, and when I see them happy and loving life again, and I make people laugh and have fun. That's what's driving me.
You've also got a I almost said resume. That's not the word that I'm looking for now. A list of interest and accomplishments that any of us would be proud to have. Just to give people who are watching and listening an idea and give you a chance to breathe here for a second, I'll take over and just share that you operate a fitness company called Ease Into Fitness, something that focuses on exercise of all types for seniors. You offer exercise videos called At Home Senior Fitness, broadcast on a local television station where you live in Chatham, as well as on YouTube. You've got a program on Cogeco Your TV, where you Cogeco is a cable company in the area where Steve lives, for those watching and listening, where you interview people in the area who are making a positive difference. You manage the VON Smart program. You've written a couple of books, Overcoming Impossible Odds, the Steve Bottrill story, as well as a religious book called The Greatest Miracle, the story behind the story. You're a volleyball referee for some YMCA leagues. You're now coaching soccer and refereeing.
Yeah.
You're doing inspirational keynote speaking. You spoke with me. We spoke from the same stage at my Mo Mondays London Inspirational Event Series. Now working on a documentary film about your life. And you've even pitched in here during the COVID pandemic as a screener for the Chatham-Kent Health Alliance and all of that. You've got an overall goal here, don't you, about the amount of people that you want to inspire? What's that?
Yeah, I'd like to inspire 1 million or more people. That's my big goal. And however I can do that, whether it's writing a book, getting my book out there, or showing my movie, or doing talks, doing my exercise videos. I just want to inspire people and make them the best person they can be. I get a lot of feedback from a lot of people, even from my videos that are on TV, which is amazing. I never thought that, I was just doing that because, some people wanted to see it. And, it was during the COVID time, they couldn't get out to the exercise facilities, the senior centers. So they said, Steve, why don't you do it on TV and shoot the videos? And I said, sure, I have time. So on the weekends when I'm not working at the hospital, I make a video and show it on TV, and people love it. So it's going really well. And I just keep them on YouTube, and people can watch them, and free of charge. And I get a lot of feedback from people like seniors, which is great. The forgotten population, right? And so that's what really keeps me going.
Let's talk about the book. Well, there are books. I mean, specifically Overcoming Actually, you know what?
Yeah.
We'll come to that. I know very little. Actually, I know nothing about The Greater Miracle, the story behind the story.
Yeah.
Did that one come first?
It's funny because they both came at the same time.
Okay.
I finished them both at the same time, which was really strange.
So you're like Guns N' Roses, putting out like 3 albums or 2 albums at once.
Yeah.
Why do one book when you can do 2, right?
Yeah. Because, what happened was I had them, at first I had them both combined. Okay. I had them both combined as one book.
Okay.
So then when I went to publish my first book, the book, Overcoming Impossible Odds, the person that was the publisher who I was originally with, Dr. Svek, I think he's in London too, but he said, why don't you make these 2 books? Because, one's a religious version and the other can be like more of an inspirational, So I thought about it, said, yeah, let's do that. So then we just kind of broke it up, and I made it into 2 books, just added a little bit and changed a little bit here and there, and it became 2 books. So that's how that happened. And
wow.
Yeah.
What was the process of writing them, Steve?
I'm sorry.
What was the process of writing them? Like when did you really get started in that in earnest, and how long did it take you?
It took me years. When I got started, as soon as when I was in the hospital, and then because I just started to write because I wanted to remember everything that happened. So I just wanted to remember everything that happened and the accomplishments and just different things that happened throughout. So as soon as I was able to write, I just started writing, and then when I got home and I got a little better, I just kept writing and writing, and it just started to flow. But mind you, it took years and years for it all to come together. And I worked with different editors and different different writers. And, they said, change this and do that, and uh, I thought, okay, let's do that. But it took years and years just to get it to where I finally want it. But the thing is, you could always make more and more changes. And I see the book now, and I think, man, I should have changed that. I should have made that different. But you know what? You'd be doing that forever.
Yeah.
You can only do so much, so many changes, until you finally have to say, well, that's enough. You know, so that it took years. Took years. And then to find the proper publisher that agreed, that wanted to do it, publish my book the way I wanted it, not the way they wanted it. And I couldn't go. I only knew big publishing companies at the time. You look at the Random Houses or the other publishing companies. You look at like one of like they write back and say, "Well, who are you? We're not going to publish your book. You're just some guy from Chatham, Ontario. Nobody knows you. Why am I going to publish your book? We want to sell millions. You know." So then finally, I found some local publishers out of Petrolia, thanks to Dr. Zvek again, and who really helped me uh, hone the book and said, "Yeah, I'll publish the book and how you want it done," and that was it. So, but it was a long process to figure all that out. You know, because I didn't know anything about writing or about particularly about writing or about publishing. I didn't, so I just shot in the dark, right? Shot in the dark until somebody said, "Okay, Steve, you're doing it wrong. Try it this way and do that," and that was that. That's what happened there.
As you look back, or maybe just look around,
Yeah,
what do you feel most proud of, Steve?
a lot of things. Like that I'm married. I'm still married to the same woman, 4 kids. You know, do it like that. That's a huge accomplishment. I look around, all my friends divorced. You know, nobody thought we were gonna make it. I didn't think we were gonna make it. But we're still going strong. And then you know another another thing that I feel a huge accomplishment is to where I am now. Everything that I've done. You know, writing the 2 books, uh, going back to playing soccer, uh, learning to read and write again, dealing with this eye, but still managed to have a productive life, helping out other people. Um, so I don't know if there's one area that I could say, this is my most highest accomplishment, but definitely, you know, where I'm at personally, um, you know, being married and kids, and that's ranks up there for me.
Yeah,
You know.
it's terrific. It's that's really wonderful, and I'm interested in your goal to inspire over 1 million people.
Hmm.
What is it in your mind to have inspired someone?
What is it that? What do I feel it's like?
What is
When,
it? What does it mean to be inspired? When you say to inspire someone,
right.
um, what do you think that means for them and
Well,
their life experience?
to them it means something different. Like as in for those seniors that I help exercise, it just for some people their big goal was to get up out of a chair. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they couldn't do that by themselves before, and they would have just given up.
Hmm.
But I kept. doing exercise, getting their legs strong, and kept encouraging them to keep going. And then eventually they were able to get up out of the chair. And that's a huge accomplishment for them. That means and when they come to me and say, Steve, because of you, I can get up out of that chair. And
Mm.
that's huge for me. Or when people say to me, I didn't give up because of you, that makes me feel really good. Whatever their goal is, uh, and you know, maybe it's to go and play soccer, or maybe it's to go back to school, or to you know reach for their whatever it is, and then you know they look at me and say, well, if Steve can do it, I can do it, you know and that's something that I feel that I help inspire them to reach for their goal.
It's a beautiful couple of examples that you've shared. I'm glad I asked the question because I think you're right. You were saying something when you initially were answering that question along the lines of, it may mean something different to other people. We all have our own perspective and experiences that we filter things through, don't we, Steve? And
Mm-hmm.
in the world that you and I occupy, where we speak and we try to uplift other people, and words get tossed around like inspiration and whatnot. And I'm sometimes guilty of thinking that people always mean like that they're pushing to reach your potential and live your purpose, and which are all good things, I think, at their core, but I've also found can sometimes intimidate people, where they're just looking for the strength to face the next thing. And it maybe feels like some all-encompassing purpose just feels too far away. I've been there. You've certainly been there. We all have our own experiences. Beautiful example you gave of one of our more senior citizens who may be considering just giving up on the ability to do something as what we might consider to be fundamental. You might not, as because you're closer to that, having lost that, having had that taken away. I've never faced that before. Somewhat when I had some back problems, but to them, that's what's right in front of them that can. I think a word like hope almost comes to mind with what you're describing, of just giving people that sense of hope, that sense of empowerment, not to necessarily feel like they have to take on the whole world, but maybe the next thing, and get a little bit of positive momentum rolling, because you certainly sound like you've you've made a life out of that, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's, you know, you always look at something, that you can accomplish, and you want to, if you want to achieve something that you're having a lot of trouble trying to achieve that, you know, the it's so easy just to say, oh, I give up. I can't do this. I can't, I can't do this, you know, uh, but you know, it takes a lot more, a bigger person to say, you know what, no matter what it is, what obstacles in my way, I'm going to accomplish that feat. And that's what it's all about. When you do accomplish that, when you do accomplish that goal, then you just feel so much better about yourself. And then that small accomplishment leads to another accomplishment, leads to another. Because as soon as you start giving up on a small thing, it's so easy to start giving up on everything else in life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it it's just you have to set those goals and achieve it in order to achieve the bigger goal that you're striving for. So don't give up on something small, uh, because that leads to everything else in your life. It brings you down the road of giving up on everything.
That's so well said, Steve. That's a beautiful way to put it. How can people connect with you? Whether they're in your area in Chatham-Kent in Ontario, or if someone's across the other side of the world,
Yeah.
what's the best way for somebody to stay in touch with you and connect with you?
Best way is just by email. I'll give you my email address.
Here, I'll put it on the screen for people.
I'll give you my scbottrill@gmail.com. That's probably the easiest way to contact me.
Okay, I'm going to put it on the screen.
Yeah.
Which, if you're listening to the audio for this,
yeah,
does it look like I've got it right?
That looks good to me.
So if you're listening to the audio again, scbottrill@gmail.com. Also putting it in the comments of our Facebook and our YouTube feed. So you encourage people to just email you there?
Yeah. And then I can talk to them. That's the easiest way, really. And if you want to know more about my story, I do, like you mentioned, I have the book, Overcoming Impossible Odds. I feel you'd be really inspired if you read this book. It's available through yourhouse.spc.com, and you can get a copy there, paperback or hard copy. And that's, if you want to know more about my story, it's available there.
Absolutely. Well, I hope people will reach out. I encourage them to. I've put your Instagram handle up here a couple of times as well.
Thanks.
coma_2_inspiration. You can find Steve on Instagram there. And we'll put a blog post together to put with all the other episodes of this podcast up on noscheduleman.com. This will be episode 113. And I'll make sure I've got links to all of that as well. And if you'd like, I'll put your email address up there to encourage people to reach out to you, because you never know who you'll connect with, right? You put your story out.
That's right.
You never know who might be the one that needs to hear it today. Steve, that was a really fast hour. Let's do this again sometime, because I've still got lots of questions for you. But it's been an absolute pleasure of mine to have crossed paths with you. They say that when you do what you love, and you're working from the heart, that you'll be amazed at the kinds of people that cross your path. And for me, you're an example of that. I'm very grateful, and I look forward to more adventures with you and working together to try to help people as much as we can. Thank you.
I can't wait. Thanks for having me, Kevin.
You bet, Steve. That is Steve Bottrill. His books, again, are Overcoming Impossible Odds, the Steve Bottrill story, and The Greater Miracle, the story behind the story. And again, I will make sure to put all of the information that he just mentioned and covered up on the website for episode 113 of this episode of Journeys with the No Schedule Man. There you see some of if you're watching the video, some of the ways that you can subscribe to the podcast. If you're listening to the audio, I'll describe what's on the screen for you. It says to subscribe or follow along free on Spotify and most major podcast platforms like Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, if you like, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and whatnot. And you can also find the video files on YouTube. We started simulcasting video and audio back at I think it was episode 84. The 83 that preceded are all audio episodes, although the audio files are up on YouTube. It's just some slides that go by. We started doing video and audio presentations like what we did here today with Steve back at episode 84. And we're now all the way up to 113, which is kind of nice. A lot of great conversations, and they are all available to you for free on those podcast platforms or at noscheduleman.com. Thanks so much to Mulligan Realty Group, Ryan and his team, the kind of realtor that you deserve if you are in the London or Southwestern Ontario area and are in need of a realtor. I highly encourage you to visit mulliganrealtygroup.com. I've known Ryan personally and the Mulligan family for a number of years, and just you could not meet better people. And they've been very, very supportive of what we're doing here with Journeys with the No Schedule Man. Thanks also to Brett and the team at Provincial Glass and Mirror. You can learn more about them at provincialglass.com. And in fact, I would encourage you to go back in our archives and listen to or watch the episode number 87. It's called How to Work Your Way Up, where Brett shares the story of starting at an entry-level position at Provincial Glass and working his way all the way up to becoming the owner of the company, which is what he is now. And they're doing really, really great work and have been a huge help to a lot of companies as we work through this COVID pandemic, with helping with some of the plexiglass partitions and the retrofitting of certain workspaces in there as well. And they've been a supporter of this podcast over the last year or so, and we're really grateful to them at Provincial Glass and Mirror. Also keep in mind My Real Success Pass. You can learn more at myrealsuccess.ca. It's a global community of heart-centered entrepreneurs who are finding their real success, kind of like what Steve talked about, of looking for the challenge that's in front of you, of what real success means to you, not to some guru, to me or to Steve or to anybody else, but to help you find your path and to get support and encouragement and give you collaboration and following along that. We do regular live coaching calls. We have a complete archive of training content available. I think that if you are entrepreneurial in any way and you're looking to learn and grow and move forward like Steve is, like I am, like you probably are if you're watching and listening, that you would really enjoy what we're offering at myrealsuccess.ca. Membership starts at just $29. So by all means, go and have a look. Once again, this is episode 113 of Journeys with the No Schedule Man, celebrating and sharing the stories of heart-centered entrepreneurs. You can find all the episodes at noscheduleman.com. My name is Kevin Bolmer. On behalf of Steve Bottrill, I want to thank you again for watching and listening. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for joining us.